Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Juggernaut and, well, it's time for a channel update. Namely, I bought myself a brand new PC. Well, I mean, functionally speaking, right? I didn't change my graphics card because I bought that like just a month and a half ago or so. And, you know, thus, as a result, I changed pretty much everything apart from my graphics card and my PSU, because those were both brand new, and, like I said, I bought them just, I think about 2 months, month and a half ago or so. Anyways, so, this is great news for me, and, well, obviously for me, right, but for the channel also, and figured I should make a channel update about it, let you guys know what's going on, tell you what I got, how happy I am with it or not, and, you know, just have a little chat about it, because I think there is something a little bit interesting for all of us to learn here, and, well, I figure, what better game to try this out with than currently the most demanding game on the market? Bar none, and that is Cyberpunk 2077 2.0. And, well, here's the thing, right? Without FSR, everything maxed out to ultra giga settings or whatever, path tracing, ray tracing, everything set to Psycho and Ultra, I get around 60 FPS at 1440p with this setup. Without FSR, that's by the way AMD's version of DLSS. Without FSR, I get about 10 FPS. Bearing in mind that my computer setup still isn't perfect and still isn't really finished. I'm having some trouble with the RAM, getting it to work at the clock that it's supposed to. My GPU, I think, is running a little bit hot, or well, it's complicated. I have a guy telling me that it's running a bit hot, but I also know that the manufactured safety, for example, for the junction, is, I think, around 110 degrees Celsius. Currently, mine is sitting at around 80 to 90. So I could push the card, I think, a little bit more, and I probably will soon, just to get a little bit of extra squeeze out of it, right? And, well, here's what I bought. Let's actually get into that, I think, first of all, and then we'll actually talk a little bit more about the performance and everything, but I genuinely think this game looks bloody gorgeous, with all of these different options turned on and everything, and it is giving me a bit of a headache in cutscenes, though, because the FOV is just not quite there for me, but never mind, let's actually talk about the PC. So, currently, in my rig, is the finest CPU money can buy currently for gaming. Well, one of the two finest ones money can buy for gaming, right? It is the AMD Ryzen 7 7800 3DX. Now, what is the reason that's the best PC and not something else? Because there are CPUs with more cores and a higher frequency, etc., because of its cache memory. You see, it has 8 cores, 16 threads, and all of those cores are hooked onto one 128 megabyte, I think, cache, and they all access it at the same time, and it works beautifully. If you get the newer version of AMD's gaming PC, the 3DX ones, you'll see that the cache is divided into 2, which means most of the time only 6 of your 12 cores that you get on that newer PC are actually using the full potential of what you have. And for that reason, in games, the FPS difference between the previous generation, and this generation's CPU strictly for gaming is around 3 to 5 FPS. In most games, the older generation will beat the newer one simply because of that cache. So there you go. But certainly it's up there. The FPS difference in the high, like 100s and 200s, is like 4 or 5, 6 FPS maybe. Sometimes the newer one wins out, sometimes the older one. It's difficult to say, but they're right around there, right? The new cores do make a difference, the more cores do make a difference, and they are important, but at the same time... Sip of water, sorry. At the same time, the cache memory is a little bit more important, I would say, in terms of gaming. And Thus, we go on to the GPU, which is probably the weakest part of the build, if I'm going to be completely honest with you, and it is a 7900 XT. It's not an XTX, and it's not a 4090 NVIDIA, right? But you gotta bear in mind that pairing up an AMD CPU and an AMD graphics card does give you a bit of a bonus in performance. You put that on a MSI X670 Pro motherboard with 32 gigs of DDR5 RAM running at 6400 MHz. You then have yourselves, well, my PC, but you then have yourselves something truly, truly special and mind-bogglingly fast and good. Obviously, an XTX would deliver better performance, and an XTX would probably be a little bit more future-proof as well. But at the moment that I was buying my graphics card, the XTX was about twice as expensive as a regular XT. And I already didn't want to spend that much money. I was already way over budget for the XT as it was. I was going to get a 6000 series card, like a 6950, I think, or something along those lines. Those were cheaper, and I thought to myself, well, yeah, I mean, hold on, I could just pay a little bit more extra, get the really, latest version, the latest, cutting-edge stuff, and be really happy with it, and it will probably last me longer, and I kind of can't afford to go a little bit over budget and sort of reorganize and eat soup for the rest of the month, right? And I did. I ate just the cheapest brand of soup for the rest of the month and just didn't really spend on anything else, and I bought myself an XT. So like I said, XTX was way too expensive, and here's the important part. I don't regret it one bit. I think the XT is phenomenal, bearing in mind that I am playing at 1440p. If I were playing at 1080p, I would probably buy something less, than an XT. Probably the 6000 version or something better. Or sorry, the 6000 version or something even worse. At 1080p, you don't really need a card that's this good. Well, Cyberpunk does, but Cyberpunk is a bit of a mess, right? The game doesn't look that good for it to give me 10 FPS. Generally speaking, the optimization of video games today is horrible. Well, actually, it's beyond horrible, right? There is no reason a card this powerful should only give you 50 to 60 FPS on Ultra 1440p today. Right, I'm having similar problems in Starfield. In Starfield, I'm getting around 120 FPS. When I go into a city like this, and there's a lot to load in, and there's a lot of different textures, a lot of different sources of light, etc., etc., then I drop down to around 90 to 80, and those were basically the two most GPU and really most performance-demanding games in general that we have on the market right now that I tried. I also played Baldur's Gate, and I had some trouble with random FPS drops during cutscenes there, but from what I saw, there was a fix. It has something to do, I think, with the anti-aliasing or something along those lines. It's a game problem, right? It's not my computer problem, it's a game problem. And I tweaked around some of the settings, and that got rid of that problem. I now have a problem with some of the shadows in that game that look a little bit grainy, but other than that, I am getting some ridiculously high FPS, right? But here's the thing, I paid a ridiculously high amount of money to be able to get this, right? I think my computer in total, everything, the case, the motherboard, the PSU, the GPU, the CPU, the RAM, everything, the SSD, which, by the way, I got a 2TB NVSe, right, those M2 ones that plug straight into the motherboard, 7000 read-write speed, pretty much capped out at PCIe 4, and yeah, I mean, it's just, it's ungodly quick. It's terrifyingly quick, and I just love it. If you're gonna get anything for your PC, get one of those SSDs. it's just ungodly fast. I swear to God, it's it will improve pretty much. Like, everyone talked about this back when SATA SSDs started coming out. You know, those blocky ones, right? Everyone said, well, if you put your Windows on that, everything will run faster. It did. And if you put your Windows on this, everything will run faster again, right? It's just mind-bogglingly fast. Even with the most mundane tasks, like browsing the internet or something along those lines, you still get the same sort of, well, you do get the experience, right? You do notice, subtly, but you do notice changes. I'll give you an example. If you suddenly open 6 Chrome tabs, they instantly open. Okay, it depends on your internet, but mostly they instantly open. And you notice, hold on, there was a little bit more rendering and a little bit more loading here before, wasn't there? Yes, there was. Okay, part of that is the new CPU for me as well, but I went from like a 2017 budget gaming PC with a 1060 6GB and a Intel i7 6700K to one of the finest gaming CPUs money can buy. And it's perfect. You know, yes, there's more expensive components, like I already covered. There's better. Technically, there's newer and more expensive CPUs. Are they better is debatable. There is a tier above in terms of GPUs, but for 1440p gaming, it's absolutely not necessary. And here's the thing, it's worth every cent for me personally. Obviously, this will depend for you guys. How much do you play? How much do you enjoy video games? How much time do you spend here? How much money do you have to, you know, play around with? How much money do you have to, you know, play around with different parts and get the best combination for you? And obviously, this might not be ideal for you, etc., etc. All of that goes, but for me personally, I make my living working on the PC, right, for university. I do YouTube here, and I spend the vast majority of my day sitting in front of my desk, and honestly, I love it. You know, some say it's a sad existence, but look, it's PC games, and it's just PC like gaming and research for my job and stuff like that, and what's the word? And firearms is like the two things I love in life, and those are like my two goals, right? It's the two things that I spend all my free money on that I don't need for bills and stuff like that. Those two things buy me happiness, if that makes sense, right? It's the two things I'm really passionate about, two things I really love, and yeah. So here's the thing. For me, worth every cent I paid for it. I assembled it myself. Oh, I forgot to mention the cooler. I did buy a Arctic Freezer 242. Two 240, which means it has 2 fans, 240 the diameter, right? So there you go.
Who was that?
It's phenomenal. It keeps my processor at around 60 degrees, I think, full load. It can go up to like 65-ish sometimes. I think the ideal temperature for, or not the ideal temperature, but the max temperature for this particular CPU before it starts thermal throttling is well above 80. I think it's like 85 or something, but 80 is, I know, perfectly safe for it. And full load, all the cores, everything in a stress test, I get, I think, around 61, 62 most of the time. Ice freaking cold. GPU's running a bit hotter, but hey, that's okay. I think I can fix that as well. I think I can get the GPU to run a little bit cooler as well by improving airflow within the case. Though I'm not sure how much that will help, because currently my case is like wide open, front and back. So if I close it and add some fans, I'm not sure whether that's going to be better or worse than what I currently have. It will actually induce airflow rather than just sort of sitting there, so it might actually cool it down just a tiny bit more. And then maybe I can overclock it just, you know, a tiny bit, and then really get the most out of my money. But regardless, this is just something that I've never experienced. Yeah, I mean, genuinely, this is something that I've never experienced. I've pretty much always, since I got my first PC, I was around the budget level. I just couldn't afford anything better for myself, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, for the kind of games that I played and for what I did, it was perfectly fine, yeah? Especially the kind of monitors I had most of the time, you know, it was... I think the first monitor I had ran at the resolution of 1620 by 1080, I think. So yeah, it wasn't like a full 27 inches. So for that stuff, it was really good, don't get me wrong. But... now I sort of upgraded on that end as well, and I'm running a 144Hz monitor at 1440p. Technology advanced, right? And I guess I'm advancing with the times, as it were, but the raw speed and power of this build just doesn't fail to impress me, even after, like, I've been playing around with for about 2 days. To be fair, I didn't have a lot of time to test stuff out. I do have a lot of work to do for uni in the next 2 weeks or so. I'm going to be super busy, but after that, I can try and play around with this. And yes, I mean, I understand that. I think technically, if I open this, I can show you. This Windows thing is showing around 50 FPS, 53. This is more than 53 FPS. This thing is terrible at gauging it. I need to get some other software to show me how much FPS I have. There's probably actually within the game, right? I think there is. Oh, and I can probably turn this on. I tried turning it off to see if I would get, or rather if it would make a difference. It didn't, so yeah. Oh, well, it does now, actually. Never mind. Huh. Well, I guess we can also see what it looks, how it looks like. Yeah, now I definitely feel the difference with it now. Huh. Okay. We're testing out live is what we're doing right now. I didn't play around with this too much. Like I said, I just really wanted to just make this video. It makes everything a bit brighter, which I actually don't like. And it does make the reflections a little bit glossier and nicer. Especially off the cars and everything. But at the same time, it just increases the brightness a bit too much. Tell you what, I think I can make a deal with my computer. Well, basically, right, I can turn on HDR on the monitor, and I think it's Windows Shift R, if I remember correctly. No? No, it's not that. Whoops. Sorry about that. Okay.
Let's take this piece of wonder tech.
There was a hotkey to turn on HDR, like, you know, with just the press of a button. I don't remember it now. Anyways, I'll play around with that a bit later. As I was saying, this isn't the peak performance that I'm getting currently. I still have a little bit of tweaking around to do with the graphics card, with the RAM as well. It isn't running at peak performance, as it were. Had some issues with that for some reason. I also had issues with my BIOS. Yeah, don't go. That will just get me killed.
Nothing personal, compa. Just biz.
Anyways, as I was saying,
Never heard of thieves' honor, finders keepers. I was first.
I also had some issues with my BIOS where I needed to flash it and I needed to update it, which I'd never done before. Well, no, actually, it's technically not true. I think my uncle do it way back when, in like 2005 or something. Back then, it was very, very different. Back then, flashing your BIOS was risky, because if it didn't work and you didn't know what you were doing, you could just kill your motherboard and you'd have to throw it out. Now, it's very different. Now, there's a backup BIOS in case you mess up, so it will still boot everything, you can try again. And actually just flashing and installing an update is ridiculously simple. You just download the latest version from the internet, put it on a USB, plug it in, enter BIOS through your on your actual PC by restarting it and hitting delete at the very beginning, like when it starts booting up. So tap delete, you get into BIOS. You literally just click flash BIOS, the button, and that's it. You point it to the USB, it installs, it restarts itself, you have a new BIOS. That's it. You don't need to do anything. You don't need to, afterwards you don't need to change anything. It just works, like, after that. It's perfect. Anyways, so, I plead the fifth here, by the way. Anywho, so like I was saying, that gave me, I think, about 10 to 15% performance increase. And it did let my CPU boost a little bit higher. Previously, it was only boosting each individual core when needed to about 4.7, 4.8. Now it boosts it to around 5.0, 5.1 gigahertz. So it basically unlocked its ability to boost a little bit higher, and the performance difference is nothing. Sorry, well, no, I didn't lie. I do not tell a lie. The performance difference is very, very slight in games. The temperature difference is nothing. Like, maybe a degree or so. This cooler is crazy good. I do have, like I said, I currently have my case like completely open from all sides, so it's a little bit loud now. When it starts hissing, you can hear the water. Wait, I was gonna say you can hear the water. That's a very bad thing if you can hear the water, but you can hear it sort of when it's struggling with something, when it's doing new things, and you just load into an area, it goes a little bit like. You can kind of hear it like that, and yeah, it's you know, when I actually pack it into a proper case and seal it all up, it's gonna be a lot more pleasant. But anyways, that's my new CPU, that's my new computer, and I think I've talked about it and bragged about it enough. It's just awesome. It is just terrific. It makes everyday work also a lot more pleasant, because, well, I mean, like I said, it's faster. Everything is faster. Everything you need to do is faster. Everything, it boots up like from, you know, powered off to on in like a couple of seconds. It's BIOS time. I think on my previous PC, the BIOS time, which is the time it takes from 0 power to you are in Windows and you can start clicking stuff, I think was about 60 seconds or so. This is like 10 maybe, I don't know, 5, I didn't count, but it's nothing. It's just, it's phenomenal, right? From that sort of professional side, if I need to do research, if I need to write something, it just gets me there faster. Do you need a $3,000 PC? Yeah, I think it's around $3,000, right? Do you need a $3,000 PC for sort of stuff like that? No, a laptop will do. But I'm saying it's very pleasant, and it's very nice. And then, obviously, for games like this, I do not want more than 60 FPS. 144 would be nice, yes, 144Hz monitor, etc., etc. It will look very smooth. But it's an RPG, I really don't care that much. I pay a lot more attention to the story and to what I'm doing rather than the actual, you know, frame rate. For more competitive games, I have mental frame rate, like absolutely mental.
Just like that?
And then, like I said, for most newer games that are a little bit better optimized and don't just chew up your graphics card, I'm getting in the high 100s to 200s. So yeah, it's insane.
One of my good feelings.
About what?
I think in my ship in Starfield I had like 240 FPS. Yeah, when it's like not an intensive area and stuff.
I'm fucking starved.
240 FPS. Jesus freaking Christ. And it's something I wanted to talk about. It's very difficult to make a decision whether you're going to buy a PC right now or not. On the one hand, you start like thinking about it and you go, well, actually, do I really need it? I hear that tomorrow, or not tomorrow, but not literally tomorrow, but you know, like a year or two from now, there's going to be new stuff and the price is going to drop. Maybe I should wait. And then I said that to myself, I think 3 years ago or so, And I kept waiting and waiting and waiting, and I was sitting there with a budget PC from 2016, which, you know, it was good value for money. Actually, it was phenomenal value for money. Still is. And for 1080p gaming, that thing still works just fine. You know, for something a little bit more casual, I guess, you want to get semi-decent FPS and stuff, and you know, want to play everything on Ultra. It's beautiful. Don't need anything better. But everyone's just telling you, you know, wait, the price is going to drop, and then Bitcoin's going to crash, and then no, it didn't crash, it soared up into the heavens again, we'll just wait a few more months, and you keep waiting and waiting and waiting, and nothing's really happening. Prices are fluctuating around the same level, and then you're like, okay, well, let's bite the bullet and actually buy something now. What do you buy? I think Intel, I think, has 35 processors that you can pick from now, in all their different variants. The i3, the i5, the i7, you know, the K, the KS, the T, the F variants, and whatever. And that's without even looking at AMD. And they're like competing against each other like a Ziploc when you look at the websites. When you look at the websites for like, you know, buying components and stuff. And then you need to plug that into a motherboard, and you need to decide, well, DDR4 or DDR5? Do I want a newer CPU? Do I want an older CPU? And you need to make sure that they work well together, not just that it will fit, but that they actually play well together, and that, you know, for what you need, it's gonna do the job. And it's ridiculous. I mean, I spent like an ungodly amount of hours just researching what the hell am I looking at, what the hell am I buying, and how is it possible that well, locally it's around $800, probably less where you're from, but locally this $800 CPU is performing worse than this $500 CPU. What's going on here? And I haven't really kept up with most of the innovations and most of the stuff that's been going on over the last few years, because the prices were just so insane. I really just
Let's blast through a tactical target practice program.
sort of tuned out of it, and didn't really pay much attention to how things are developing in the world, and as a result I need to catch up basically a little bit, to see what's good, what's not, and most of the stuff that I read just disappointed me, because here's the thing. I went from a budget PC, like I said, to something rather expensive. And you would expect that once you skip like 5 or 6 or 7 generations worth of CPUs and GPUs, and you pay top dollar for the really top-end stuff, I expected this thing to be a spaceship, right? I expected this thing to be just out of this world. And instead what I got was a faster PC. Much faster, yes, much more pleasant, but it felt like I skipped a generation or two. And on top of that, maybe I jumped from like a budget line to a medium line, or from a medium line to a top-end line of, you know, GPUs or CPUs or whatever. For 1 or 2 generations. It didn't feel like 7 or 8 generations had passed. And, okay, well, it wasn't 7 or 8. Well, it was the 1060, and then the 2000, the 3000, now we have the 4000 series, so there you go. But still, it's a lot of time, right? It's a lot of time, and I'm basing sort of my disappointment off the fact that I remember when I bought a PC, or rather when my parents bought me a PC in 2005, and then when I upgraded around 2010, 2011, it was a spaceship, right? It was completely different. Not just in its raw power and output, but the stuff that you could do with it, the technologies both in games and the programs and everything. There was so much technological advancement compared to that period, compared to like 2000 to 2010, we had leaps in technology pretty much every year, and it was massive. Compare that to now, we have like subtle, small increases. I'm not saying that AI is irrelevant, that FSR is, you know, not revolutionary and stuff. These are great things, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, you know, it's nowhere near the level of progress. And so, what we have is kind of a, how do I put this? Well, a mixed bag of emotions and feelings, I would say. Because, on the one hand, I
Style over substance. Good.
am happy
Now
that,
take him out
you know,
quietly.
I have, well, sorry about that, that I have, like, such an amazing PC, and that it really works and all of that. It works really well for me.
Never smart to leave behind any trace of your handiwork.
I'm, you know,
Especially the dead kind.
thrilled
Now pick
to have
up the
a
body,
top-end
hide it
PC,
somewhere.
for once. I really am, but at the same time, I'm kind of mixed about that in terms of the value for money that I got, because I've paid a crap ton of money. I've paid more for a GPU than I've paid for any of my previous PCs. Everything put together, right? Case and usually keyboard and mouse and monitor included. So it was out there in terms of price, and I don't think I got the value that we all should, given the price. Fully, you know, taking into consideration inflation and all of that. It's not the same to pay $1,000 today and $1,000 like 20 years ago. I understand that, but taking even inflation into consideration, I feel like it's not what we deserve for our money. I feel like that this could be a lot better and that it should be a lot better.
Detonate the grenade.
Not just in terms of, you know, oh, the technological development isn't as fast as I want it to be. A lot of the time I feel like they're making gear and they're making products not as good as they could on purpose so that they would force you to buy a better one next year. I put it to you, is it really... I need to pause the game for this because I need to focus on this, right? Sorry about that. I put it to you, is it really impossible, like completely out of the question, for AMD to sit down and say, right, the 7800 3DX is the best gaming CPU we've made ever. How do we one-up that? Well, what about we put in 4 extra cores in it? But the memory's going to be a problem. We need to split it up into 2. And they try it, and they do that, and it's like, well, right, it's kind of slightly worse than last year's CPU. Is it really that unheard of? Is it really that impossible for them to try and work around this and just make a CPU that has 12 cores, but the same memory layout and the same speed in terms of accessing the memory cache as previous year? Now, I understand that it's not as simple as just taking the previous year's CPU and just adding 4 cores on top of it. It won't work like that. I understand that, but is it really impossible for a multi-billion-dollar company to think of something and put 2 and 2 together? Now, surely not, Juggernaut, right? Yes, but is it in their interest? Because here's my conspiracy theory here. My conspiracy theory is you would buy a CPU like that, and then you wouldn't upgrade for the longest time. Why? You wouldn't need to. Other than Cyberpunk, what game came out there that's well optimized, that needs a CPU that's better than, well, the best one currently available, right? It's a bit of a silly question, but what game will come out in the next, hell, 5, maybe even 10 years, that currently the best CPU is not going to cut it? What will happen to video games that's so revolutionary that we will need CPUs that are 30, 40, 50% more powerful than top-of-the-line CPUs now, in like 5 years or 10 years. But let's say 5 years. I put it to you, nothing. Now, had you asked me that in 2005, in 2010, yes, you know, big differences, and then 2015, even bigger differences. But From 2015 to 2023, we really haven't moved that much. Okay, comparatively speaking, right? Comparing the 90s to the 2000s to the 2010. And I fully understand that that pace is not something that's sustainable, right? It's not something that you can do, but it's still worth considering that they could, in my modest opinion, be making better GPUs and CPUs. And I think NVIDIA is the first to blame for this. Or rather, the greediest when it comes to this. 12 gigabytes of VRAM on some of their top-of-the-line GPUs for this year. 12 gigs is nothing. For the exact same amount of money, you get 20 with AMD. Now, 20 is something, right? This card, the 7900 XT, has 20 gigabytes of VRAM. That's going to be enough to last me for an incredibly long amount of time. Now, fair enough, as you can see, it's struggling in a game like this, and, well, you know, you use FSR, and yeah, it's not perfectly optimized, and yeah, I could overclock it a little bit, and I can get it to run a little bit better, but maybe 4, 5, 6 years from now, games start coming out that it will struggle with, regardless of its high VRAM. But the VRAM won't be a problem, yeah? That's the thing. 5 years from now, with the 7900 XT, and bold prediction, VRAM will not be a problem for this card. Because I put it to you, 20 gigs of VRAM in 2028 or something, right, is not going to be a problem. That's going to be fine. I mean, hell, 16 gigs of RAM currently is more than enough for most things. DDR5 is kind of useless. I mean, it's better, don't get me wrong, but it's not that much better. Considering we're going from DDR4 to DDR5, right? It's supposed to be like a massive upgrade and such. Yeah. I don't know, right? Sure, I think its biggest difference in performance is the 0.1, is the 1% and 0.1% FPS drops. DDR5 handles those better than DDR4. And yeah, it's more efficient and etc, etc. And yeah, okay, look, it's a better memory, but it's also a lot more expensive. And then, do you want 16 gigs of DDR5 or 32 gigs of DDR4? And then you compare them like that based on price, and you go, right. It's not, it's not all that, is it?
Find cover, quick. Nice.
So,
Nice.
I don't know what to tell you.
Slowly towards the exit.
It's not ideal, like none of this is, but at the same time, we can't do nothing about it, and, oh.
Come on, you got this.
Didn't expect them to see me. Alright, fair enough. Failing the tutorial, which I not really. It's fine, don't worry about it. Anywho, as I was saying, it's a, you know, not what I would call a great time to be a PC gamer, and it's really not a great time in the industry. But that shouldn't distract us from the fact that we can very much enjoy what we currently have, without, you know, being too cynical about it. And for top dollar, we have some pretty good PCs, so there you go. I'm not going to complain more than that. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching. Like, subscribe down below if you enjoyed the video, and we'll stay tuned with the rest of the content that I produce on the channel. I will just tell you before I sign off that recording on PC and rendering is also a lot faster for me now, so I will try and record 1440p videos, and rendering those videos will be a lot faster. I'm trying desperately to negotiate for Optic Internet to come to my house here. Believe it or not, we still don't have that. A good chunk of the country does, and they kind of... It's kind of present in some of the bigger cities and such.
Well done. On to the next area.
Especially if you live in like an apartment building, they will give you optic cables. But I live in a house, and most service providers just aren't willing to buy a 3 or 4 meter cable to get me internet here. Now, I did offer, I was like, I'm going to buy the cable myself. Hell, I'm going to plug it in myself. I'm going to, you know, go up the, the light pole, and I'm going to, you know, plug it in up there myself. I swear, just let me, you know, let me have it. I'll take care of it myself. Just, you know, give me permission to do it. I'll buy you the cable, because, okay, they're not the cheapest, but I'm not even that expensive anymore. Let's just, you know, let's just make it happen, yeah? But no, it's, they can't do it, they don't have the authority. It's like, we need, we're doing this, you know, bit by bit, and they've been doing it bit by bit for, years now, so years later I still don't have, fiber internet. But anyways, as I was saying, faster PC, easier to record, easier to render, easier to upload, hopefully with the new internet soon. So I'm really excited for the channel, and as soon as I, you know, handle all of my uni stuff that I need for this month, or rather for next month, I'm gonna get to recording and have a whale of a time, I tell you. Alright, that's about it. Ladies and gents, thank you very much for watching. Like, subscribe down below if you enjoyed the video and want to stay tuned for the rest of the content that I produce on the channel. I'm Juggernaut. Have fun, take care, and bye-bye.